Okay, so Module 13's reflective log is regarding change, and we're to identify and describe two vital tools in working through opposition to change. We're also to discuss our ability to recognize and assess behavior, as well as use of self in working through opposition to change throughout the helping process. So, in our textbook, which is Direct Social Work Practice Theory and Skills, chapter 18 describes barriers to change. And it says, in the best of circumstances, progress toward goal attainment is rarely smooth. Even getting started can be a formidable challenge with involuntary clients when compliance is required. The help that is offered has not been solicited and may not be perceived as particularly useful. With all people, the change process is one in which there can be rapid spurts, plateaus, impasses, fears, and sometimes brief relapse time periods. So that's kind of the undercurrent. So social workers go in to help clients, whether in groups of people, whether in small groups, large groups, or individual groups, and they're to help people have better lives. So in stepping in here and talking about two vital tools, it's very clear in all the textbooks and the research that we've done is social workers do run into definite opposition to change. So this text talks about relational dynamics. So I would think that relational dynamics would be a very good tool to have when working through opposition to change. Relational reactions are conscious and unconscious dynamics between people. For example, reactions of the social worker to the client or those of the client in response to the social worker. Your relationship with the client is the vehicle that animates the helping process. So, indeed, the quality of the helping relationship can critically determine a client's moment to moment receptiveness to you. For better or worse, feelings and emotions that can influence the relationship constantly flow back and forth between you and the individuals with whom you are working. So, to maintain positive helping relationships, it's important that you be alert and manage relational dynamics so that they don't become threats. So, there's tool number one. It's just reducing the risk of negative relational dynamics. That's a huge tool. So it goes on and it gives some advice as to what steps that might look like. One is exploration, and that helps you to clarify and understand your bias, beliefs, values, stereotypes. In essence, this process informs you of how you might judge people and subsequently draw positive or negative conclusions about them. So it says that the evaluation of self is instrumental in maintaining self control. So that will definitely be a portion of one of the vital tools. Number two, it goes on to say self awareness is also a component that needs to be a step in reducing the risk of negative relational dynamics. Self awareness is admitting and assessing your personal thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, specifically centering, focusing, compartmentalizing, and if needed, engaging in self talk. Clearly, as noted above, it can be difficult to manage your feelings with some individuals and in some situations. So a third thing that the text suggests is to maintain self-control. That's the ability to recognize and therefore manage your feelings, emotions, and behaviors. Actively taking steps to manage your potential reactions before and during a session can prevent you from becoming caught up in dynamics that can sidetrack a relationship. It does say that in preparing to meet with clients, you may find it useful to develop a mental checklist in which you focus on, for example, the reason and purpose of the contact and what is to be accomplished, taking into consideration your agenda as well as the clients. So, to reiterate, step one for me in identifying two vital tools, the first tool is relational dynamics, just to be self-aware, self-controlled, maintain my composure so that my relationship with that client will be more positive, so that they may want change. That may help them want some change. Now, the text does go on to, and I chose the second tool in fighting opposition to change in talking about cultivating positive cross-cultural relationships. So obviously, in the first one, we talked about communication. This is about the whole general relationship status because we live in a very multicultural society. And in DFW area, obviously, we've got a lot of cultures going on. So what can be done to minimize the dynamics of culture or racial differences and their role as a potential relational barrier in the helping process? It talks again about self-disclosure. And so, again, that applies to this. But empathy and empathetic communication are basic skills that facilitate engagement and bridge the gaps that might be present in cross racial and cross cultural client social worker relationships. So, cultural empathy is an effective treatment tool. So, that's one you want in your pack. Another thing it says ethnotherapeutic, and that relies on the cross-cultural social worker's capacity for introspection and self-disclosure when the results are in support of the helping process. So again, it goes back to the social worker really monitoring what's going on inside them, what they're thinking, what their biases are, introspection, and controlling themselves. Relational empathy, and it's described here in this text as facilitating, helping in cross-cultural or racial relationships. So as an interpersonal skill, relational empathy is an understanding of a person's cultural or racial background and the sociopolitics of the client's situation, even though as a social worker you may not be fully aware of each and every nuance. Another thing is helper attractiveness. And of course, that has to do with a factor which diverse clients are reported to have responded to favorably. Essentially, it means that clients perceive that you're interested in them and that you have compassion and a general desire to help them, which results in their feeling hopeful about achieving their goals. So, again, second tool is about making sure that the cross-cultural relationships are forged between specifically a therapist or a social worker who's coming from a different background now is working with somebody from a completely different background. Everything involves the social worker just having a lot of introspection. That's for sure. Now, I'm rambling, so I'm going to move on to the last point here. Discuss your ability to recognize and assess behavior as well as the use of self in working through opposition to change throughout the helping process. So, I grew up in a sizable family. I mean, I have two brothers. There were three of us kids, parents, but a large extended family that we were very close with. And I think that throughout my life, we've also adopted children. We've also, been exposed to a variety of different people. We lived in Ukraine for a while. And at any rate, I think that I am able to recognize and assess behavior. In raising 10 children, that kind of does something like that. But um, I do believe that myself, I'm going to have the ability to recognize and assess behavior. And then as far as working with self through the opposition to change, it's what we just talked about. And that's why I picked those two topics, because in all honesty, in social work, we as social workers have to work on self continually. We got to be cleared out in here so that we can focus on our clients. And it is about self-evaluation. I think they've said that a lot, but anyway, there is my Module 13 reflective log, and I thank you for listening.